Hello, I'm teaching you coding by doing. The first project is something where you can see a result pretty early. It is a disco bot. Many say disco bots are not good for learning. I think it's good for having fun while learning. So we're gonna use the language JavaScript. I'm not gonna make any edits in this video so that you can be sure that there are no cuts or cheats. The first thing you're gonna do is download Node.js. It doesn't matter if you download 18.14.2, 19.7 or any other version. It must be bigger than the version 16. Then you need a text editor. You can download Visual Studio Code or the insider version of that, or any other version, any other editor. It doesn't matter. What matters is to have Node.js on your system or on the machine where you are running your bot. Then you open your browser, go on discord.com/developers or the alias discord.dev, and then go to applications, create an application and name it. Give it an avatar if you want, give it a description if you want. Then you go to bot, create a bot and copy the token. In your Visual Studio Code, you go on the desktop. Let me go on the desktop. On the desktop, you create a folder called your project name or whatever name your project gonna be. Let me name it example bot 1. And then you drag and drop it into your Visual Studio Code. It will load and eventually add the folder. I created a file called .env. This file means you can store environment and variables in your project without having others seeing those variables, having access to that file. Only you can do this, or everyone who has access on your machine, but no one from external source. This means secure keys, API keys, passwords, etc. can be stored in here. As you can see, I have a variable, I call it discord_token equals, and then you can paste your token. Let me give you an example with this one. I'm gonna copy the application ID for an example how it will look. It will look like this, but the token is not like just numbers, also letters. So don't worry, it will be long and pasted in here. Don't share it to anyone. I'm not gonna share it to you either because I wanna keep secure. To get started with the project, simply create your first folders or files. I want to keep everything inside of a folder called source, and I can use the shortcut in Visual Studio Code for creating a file and source /, which will create the folder source and then the file afterwards, which I'm going to call index.js. You can call it .mjs if you want, but I'm going to call it .js or .gg's or .ds. I'm going to explain that. We have multiple file names possible for JavaScript project. JavaScript engine Node.js can read all type of files, and it doesn't matter what extension it is. So technically you could also code inside of a txt file, as long as the code is JavaScript, because JavaScript is an interpreted language. It means it reads lines by lines or code blocks by code blocks and executes that. It doesn't matter in what file it is. It doesn't matter in what system it is. It will always be the same. So, what's the difference between CJS, GS, MJS, and TS? So, CJS means Common JS, aka Common JavaScript. This is the old style which was used to develop Node.js, where you can import a variable name from an external source or a file, like this, with required. This takes a ton amount of memory as it stores all the data of the file inside of your memory. So this is not a good approach, but it's a simple approach for beginners. We are not beginners, we want to be pro developers, so we move away from that. I'm gonna now show you the difference between .js and MJS. It really doesn't matter, as already explained, but MJS is the new modular coding style for JavaScript. You may also find the description ESM or ESM 2015 or 2020. Technically, you import stuff from a file or external source. It's just a different approach, and this doesn't really cache it in your memory accessible, making it possible for you to save memory, be faster in file loading, and many more features. Also, it allows circular file reading without any problems, which the old method didn't. This is great and important for many projects, but not for us. So, I'm gonna teach you to code in MJS, as that's the proper approach, but it doesn't matter if the file is named MJS or JS, because the declaration, what type your project is done inside of a JSON settings file. First up, we're gonna generate the file by typing npm init. You can now give it a name, give it a version and a description. Your example Discord bot project #1. You can give an entry point, which for us is in the source folder, and index.js. It's important to point it like that. A test command is not needed for us. I have a GitHub repository for the code if you want it, but yeah, I recommend watching the entire video to learn the code, to learn JavaScript. Good. Now our package.json is generated. To tell Node.js that we are gonna use the model-based coding language of JavaScript, we're gonna add a type model. If you wanna use scripts like npm run start, you can add that command. Start node dot. This is JSON. It's technically a simple language for global data transferring, often used for websites, so you're able to store data, send data in a format every system can understand. It's a key value system where you have keys and values. Everything is a string, and you can even do nested JSONs. It always starts with curly open brackets and ends with curly ending brackets. This is it, so everything you need to know. First, inside of our index.json, we need to import a library to initialize our environment variables. For that, we're gonna install a project called .env. While that, we can start importing the data from it, from our .env, and VS Code already gives us IntelliSense for that. So we can use the config function to configure our environment variables. Next, we're gonna create some structure in our code so that we can structurate every single code pieces separately, so we know what's where and we're able to locate files quicker. In our structure, we're gonna create our client.js file, which is our bot client. There, we're gonna import some functions from projects like Discord.js. Also from our node model file system. It doesn't matter if you type node::fs, but this is the new modern approach of importing internal node models Node.js provides you to enhance your coding, so you know if it's an external or an internal package. Discord.js is external and available on npmjs.com. Let me show you an example. This is the Discord.js official website, but if you go on npmjs.com/the project name Discord.js and wait a little bit, you will find the project npm for Node Package Manager, which we already used to install the project.env. As you can see, you have the project in here. It's an external project. There's no internal project for Node env variables, so you need an external project. But there are also internal project documentations, for example for path. You can find path and this is an actually internal Node.js path model, which also is available on the official Node.js org documentations. If we go in here, search for path, here's path, and here's the documentation about our path. So this is official internal, this is unofficial external by community. Now we're gonna export our custom bot client class, and extend the pre-existing class client from our Discord.js. This is very advanced and you will not understand it, but I'm gonna teach you. The client is a class from Discord.js which wraps data and functions and again classes inside one variable called client. You can create as many clients as you want by doing const client 1 equals new client, and then const client 2 equals new client. If you wanna add things like client1.commands or client1.database, you can extend the client. The proper way of doing this is creating your own class and then providing extends client. Now you gotta tell that it extends the client by calling inside of the constructor, which is built like this, the super class builder. In there, all of the options what client takes are needed to be provided from Discord.js. Normally you have IntelliSense in here. I don't at the moment because I don't know, but we will import our intents. Now intents is a Discord specific feature. If you go on and import gateway intent bits from Discord.js, you can provide them in here. As you can see, I don't have IntelliSense at all. This is because Discord.js is not loaded in our project. As we did with .env, we're gonna now install Discord.js from the external package manager for Node packages. There are also different installers like Yarn, which can install npm library packages too, which technically are just GitHub repositories. Now, if I delete it again, I get IntelliSense and I can select everything from Discord.js, which provides me IntelliSenses in Visual Studio Code for code suggestions. The guild's intent is needed and required, what Discord actually tells us. Remember, Discord.js is an external library. Discord is the app itself. Discord doesn't make Discord.js, but it makes an API which you can read documentations about in here. For example, how to create the application. And it's required to listen to the intent guilds, aka that you are able to retrieve guild data. Every intent in there means you retrieve the data, means Discord.js catches that. Also, there's an option to disable the cache. Therefore, you provide the option make cache, import options from Discord.js, and do options cache with limits, and then provide your manager, for example, messages, and set the size to 0 or whatever size you want, which makes it possible that you can save memory. If you don't have the message intent or presence intent as I do, you do not need to add the make cache because it will not be cached because you can't listen to the messages. If you need that listening to messages but don't need the cache, then simply import it like that. Good. Now we can create custom variables. For example, our commands, which is a new collection from Discord.js. Note, it doesn't recommend me the variable collection from Discord.js, so I'm gonna first import it and then use it. Then we're gonna set some settings. If we should publish our / commands, as well as if we should publish it in a dev guild, which for my case, I have an ID in here. Then we're gonna call a function initBot. But wait, it doesn't initialize the bot. There's no function like that. Well, we're gonna create the function initBot inside of our class because we can add more functions too. In our init bot, we're gonna call 2 more functions, and then once the bot is ready, we're gonna log in with our process env discord_token, which is inside of that file. To be sure that your variable name is correct, always copy paste it. Then we're gonna create our custom event called your bot custom ready, if you want. It doesn't really matter. And then we can provide options and parameters. What is this? What is an event? Well, technically, a Discord bot just relies on events, Websockets. You connect to the Discord library via your token, and then you're online with it, like a virtual Discord app. Every single API request Discord makes and gives you information, it will be stored in your bot. The storaging Discord.js handles, the talking with the API Discord.js handles for you. You just tell Discord.js what to do. If you want to create a channel, if you want to create a message, if you want to create an interaction, etc., etc. You can enhance your library by adding new events. This doesn't affect Discord because this is just local on your machine. I have now created the emit event your bot custom ready. This means it will emit and tell the bot client, wait, my bot custom is ready. It's not ready for Discord, but ready for my application. Therefore, we can now go back to our index.js file and import from our structures client.js file. It's important to provide .js, our custom class. Now we can create our client. Important, new your bot client. And now we have our client.on with that custom event, which means it's ready, loading the bot. Maybe we should rename it. Finished loading bot. Yes, yes. And then we can console log. Bot is finished loading. And now logs into Discord. And now it logs into Discord. And once it's logged in, our event ready will fire, which is from Discord and tells us that the bot is ready. We're gonna add another option called presence with the activities with our, which is an array of an object where we have a name. I'm gonna call it booting up because that activity is actually the activity sent to Discord during the login state, and it will be shown before the bot is ready. Therefore, once the bot is ready, which we can call inside of our events, we can change the presence and tell everyone, oh, our bot is ready, yay! Now we're gonna code another util function. We're gonna call it publish commands. We're gonna use if this should publish equals false, then we're gonna return, aka don't publish. Now if we have a def command guild, which has a length, aka it's not empty, then we're gonna get the guild from our this guild's cache get. Now why is it this guild and not client? Well, you can access the client inside of the class always with this. If you would now do like in here, client your bot client, you do client.commands, client.guilds cache, because now you don't access it from inside of your client, but outside of your client on the variable you declared. So we now have the statement if something inside of here is true. For example, if our should publish variable is equals to false, if the statement is correct, then the code afterwards will be executed. You can provide multiple lines of code by having open and close brackets. Now we're gonna get our def command guild, and if we have a guild, we're gonna do guild commands set with our this commands and the map, our custom command.data. Now the problem I'm having is I don't have IntelliSense for our commands. We can fix that simply by adding a comment like this with type, open curly brackets, and now we're gonna import a type from our structure, which we're gonna create right now. Creating types is possible if you're not on a project from TypeScript, but if you're on a project of JavaScript by using JSDOC, which on default is imported and works with Visual Studio Code out of the box. So, what am I doing here? Basically, we can create IntelliSense code inside of comments and then import it to get IntelliSense inside of our editor. Here we now have two properties where I'm gonna use our property client and our property interaction. I'm gonna tell it what the property name is equal to, so that we can get IntelliSense for that. So now if we do the type is equals to a collection, with the first being a string and then being the command / command, we can now have our IntelliSense in here. This is neat. But if we don't have a dev command guilds, it means we want a global command push to all available guilds. So we can just do this command set with the same code. Now this is of course async code, aka it tells Discord and waits for Discord to respond. So I just changed the code that if there's no guild, I'm gonna skip. You can add an error message if you want, and then we can do console log, publish the command to the dev guild. If an error happens, it will not log it and it will crash at this point of code. Good. Now that's done, we're gonna go back to our types because we want a secondary type, a second command type. We wanna also have our context menus, which is also a / command, but it's right-clicking something on Discord, which is a new feature, which I'm gonna show you too. Back in our clients, we're gonna now start coding the actual bot. So first, we're gonna load events. Then we're gonna load commands. For that, we need to create an async function, load commands. And in there, we're gonna code some code. Before that, we're gonna make the function private, so we don't get IntelliSense because we don't need this. Same for initbot. We're gonna copy that again and copy the name of load events in order to not make a typo. Now we scroll way more down and we start by coding our utility functions. I'm gonna copy it the base functions from my snippets because I'm gonna explain it to you. First, before I can explain things to you, we're gonna go up there and import from Node.fs promises, and from Node.util path to file URL, and from Node path base name, dir name, and resolve. These are all needed inside of our util functions. The getDir function of path technically just reads the dir name of our path and returns it. It will be a string, and what it does is if we have /home bot client.js, it will return us bot. The transform path is useful because on Linux you have a path like that, but on Windows you have a path like that, something like that, which is not the same. So Windows and Linux is different. With this code we make it cross-platform able, so you can use it both on Linux and on Windows. With the file name we do the same as getDir of path, but instead of getting the directory we get the file name without the extension, just client in this case. The manual code does it too if this code fails due to some reasons. The last utility function I'm gonna code with you, explaining it. It's a recursive directory reader, which means it's gonna read through all directories recursively, aka nested. If you have nested directories like source commands is our nested directory. It reads the whole source folder and then the whole command folder, then the whole events folder, then the whole structure folder, then all files in that. etc, etc. Because we want to get a list of all of our commands, of all of our events, etc, etc, we need this. Now we're going to use from file system to promises and read a directory, as already explained. And we need the option with file types, so it works better. If we don't have any items or no items length, we're going to throw a new arrow saying no items in path. Now this is an in-string variable which only works if you use these quotes around it, else you can't insert the variable inside of a string. A string, let me tell you what is a string and a number. Well, a string is something with characters. You can't multiply or do math with it. Doing math is only possible with numbers. Therefore, there are differences with numbers, strings, etc. This is an array. An array can store many values, like JSON can. Or same with our collection, or with a map, or with an object. These are things you will eventually learn. And now we are building a loop. This loop means we start at 0 and have a secondary variable m. M is the total amount of files which we have. Then we're gonna add 1 to I after the first loop is done. So we loop, execute code, increase I. Loop, execute code, increase I. But if I is the same size as m, aka if in the increment I reaches m, it stops the loop. So now if the current item directory is a directory and recursive is on true, we're gonna overwrite our files array with the pre-existing files and also with a recall of that function but of a subpath. So we're gonna insert the path as a string and then the item's name. To access something in an array, you always do files, open brackets, and then the number of the index of that array. 3 is the third element. This would be the 0th, 2nd, 3rd, 4th element. To access 2, we need the number 1, etc, etc. But if it's not a directory, but a file, then we wanna return that path. So we do files with push, path, slash, items, i.name, and that's it. Now we have the file inside of our array and our storage files will be returned back to me. Now we can start actually coding those two functions. So for commands, we're gonna get our paths by a way to walk through the directory of our current process, current working directory. So of our process, the current working directory will be used, and we're gonna access source and commands because we load the commands. It doesn't matter how many folders we have there, all that counts is the files due to our util function. Now we're gonna use a promise all function because we wanna do something asynchronous across all paths. This makes it parallel, which executes all codes at the same time technically, which makes it more efficient and faster. Since we are using ESM 2020 code style, it's more efficient to do it that way than making a loop and waiting each action. So first we're going to resolve our path so that we are able to use it correctly. Then we're going to import our path by doing await this import and transform the path to make it cross-platform available, and then returning the default export of that file. Speaking of exports, I'm going to explain that once we get to a command. Then we're going to store that command data name inside of our commands storage. We're going to also create a directory based off the command folder. Simple like that. To lowercase means if the folder has caps in it, it will lowercase them. Now that's done and we can return. To make it the code shorter, we can directly do return the promise. Now we're going to copy the files from code from load commands into load events and change up source events to source commands to source events. The only difference we do is instead of importing a command, we import an event, and instead of storing the event, we initialize the event. Before we can do this, we need to grab the event name based off the file name. And then we're gonna do this.on of our event name with our event, bind it with our client. This means we're gonna naturally have our this.on interaction create, for example, and then the variable interaction. That's it. But now we're gonna have client and interaction, making it possible to access client from every single event file. Now that's done too, and we can start coding our first two events. First, we're gonna create a red event. Then we're gonna also create our interaction create.js file name. In our interaction.create, we're gonna export a default async function like that. Now we're gonna import our types like that. Instead of using the Discord.js client, we can simply use our custom client to get all of our IntelliSense in here. Now we can console log our interaction for teaching in later episodes. Now we're gonna get our command from client commands, get interaction command name. If we have a command, we're gonna do command execute. And we're gonna pass our client and interaction, as that's what we need inside of a command. That's it. But if you want IntelliSense, you can add a type for that command with importing from our structures types the slash command. To make it neater, I'm gonna group the code for later teaching purposes. Inside of our ready file, we're gonna do technically the same as in interaction create. So we can copy paste this, but we remove all of the things with interaction as we don't have an interaction in here. Now this is a base event file name and we can start coding it. If this event's fired, it means our bot is ready, is now logged in. We can directly log some stats like the guilds or the members, total members, by reducing over all guilds and adding the member count of all guilds together, or our ping, etc, etc. I'm gonna tell you something for future big bots. Reducing our member count is not clever, because the member count might be not defined. So you should map over the member count and then filter where the type of our member count is equals to a number, and then reduce it together by doing a plus b. This is just a more secure way so that the function you get is more stable. Then we're gonna set our activity so that it's ready actually. Always provide the type. To provide the type, we need to import it from Discord.js. Our activity type is our plain type because there are multiple types. You can check out what types are available. Then if the bot is ready and we want to publish the commands. I want to publish the commands before the activity is set. So let's do it like that. Going back to here, making sure that we return something. Always return something. Now we can code our first command, which is an info command, ping.js. You don't need to group it at all. You can just have it in commands, but I would recommend you to do so. So Let's also group it by slash and context menus. So slash info ping.js. Now I created a folder, I'm sorry. And this also means we can create a context info folder and in there have an avatar.js file because that's what I want to show to you. So in our index, which is actually the ping command, the most basic command that Discord bot can have, we're going to import from Discord.js, we're going to import the slash command builder. Now we're going to export our default object. That's why we access default inside of our import from our command loader and create a slash command builder with the name ping, with a description, get my latency, etc, etc. It's important to call it to JSON so you can access the data better and directly export it to Discord without having to store the JSON data manually. In order to get now the IntelliSense, which I talked about, like interaction, no IntelliSense, we can now import our slash command type from our types. It's important to always have .js at the end in all imports because it doesn't work elsewise. So let's check that again. It seems alright. Back in here, we can now do interaction reply and reply with, I don't know, with a content pong client websocket.ping. Make it ephemeral. This means that, wait a minute, what just happened? Ah, it works. Which means that only the executor can see it. And lastly, we return as always. Now we're gonna copy that into avatar. And instead of doing slash command, we have a context command, of course. Instead of a slash command builder, we have a context menu command builder. Inside of there, we also need types because there are two context menu types. So our application command type is user. You can right click a user or right click a message. That's what it is. So we're now going to return the avatar, which is for our interaction. Interaction, the target member, display avatar URL. Target member means you would access a custom avatar or the user avatar if no custom avatar is available. Now that's done, we should be able to start the bot without any problems. If problems occur, we're gonna fix them. So first node space dot to start index.js. As you can see, we get bot is finished loading and now it's logging into Discord. This is what we get from here. Then afterwards it called this.login and then the ready file logged all of this data and then published the commands which are now logged in here. So you can see this order. Then the Discord activity should be set to try ping, and if we try the slash command ping, it works as expected. 122 milliseconds is the ping from my home. If we right click a user, go on apps and click avatar, we get the avatar from our context menu. Now let's code another context menu. Let's code, I don't know, something for messages. Let's code the context menu for message, React message. I don't know. Cool. Author avatar. It's not really needed, but just to show off. I have message, and then we do, instead of interaction, this is now not a context command user, context command message. So we go back to our structures, types, copy our context command user, rename it to context command message, and this is now a message context menu command interaction. And now if we are in here, we have interaction and all of that, like channel, command ID created, many things. Interesting. Target message, offer, display avatar URL. And now we get from the offer the display avatar URL theoretically. To show you, if we do right click on a message, nothing shows here to be apps. If we now start the bot, it should tell me booting up, then it's ready. Now if I right click, I have apps avatar, and this is now message avatar. Let's give a description, message avatar, or offer avatar as the command name is structured. And now it should be renamed, once published, offer avatar. Nice, and that's it. In the next video we're gonna talk about how to do sub commands. So instead of doing /ping, you can do /info ping, and then we're gonna evolve and teach more advanced things. If you have any questions, let me know in the video description. See ya, peace out.